Hey everyone, I've been meaning to get back to videos for a while, and I want to get back to my onboarding breakdown series and do some different types for developer experience and for some more AI focused apps. One thing I wanted to cover in a post this week, and so I'm going to try to actually do the video and turn the video into the post instead of writing it from scratch like I usually do, because that just takes a lot of time. I want to go through AI UX, so experiences in AI apps that are not just chat-based or text-based, and kind of show you some of my favorites that I've seen implemented. So NotebookLM is one of them. If you're not familiar with it, it was one of the Google Labs releases. I think it was Google Labs. It was at least a Google project that came out initially with the focus on kind of distilling the dense information that comes out in some of the machine learning and AI-based like research papers on Arvix. And they've done a lot to really improve it. The magic here was that you give it the sources, and then it lets you generate like a podcast style audio summary. And they've done a lot of cool things since then. So I'm just going to show you. Let me see. So I did this one for my wife, for example. This was a date we went on in Minnesota. There's like a urban legend of a lake monster or whatever. So we're going to look for it, there's actually like a reward. So we planned a little date around this. So one of the cool things you do is you just add sources. So it could be anything. They support files from your Google Drive, links to website or YouTube videos, or you can just add in text. They give you a 300 source limit, which is kind of a lot, because if you're trying to create a more distilled summary or digestion for a specific set of things, probably don't need that many things. I use this a lot for just communicating product requirements and feature level things internally for people who don't want to read all of them. So you can see I found on the left side, there's some text in here that I probably did the research on or found from a different LLM. There's some videos that I found, probably things that I found from like Perplexity searches. And then they actually have built in, there's deep research. So it's going to probably run the Gemini model on deep research mode since that launched recently. Obviously, it's a Google product. It's closely tied to Google models, and it's just kind of a way to show the utility of it. But you get a chat with AI in the middle. The AI can reference any of these to answer questions. You can actually use the chat to create new notes when you ask questions, and you can use the responses to add that to different sources, which is kind of cool too if you get an answer from web or from different things that maybe you weren't expecting to run at the same time. On the right side, you have this studio panel. So the studio panel is cool because they've added a lot to this. So like I said, originally you get the audio overview. And what I like about this UX is you can do a one click to just generate it. And it's going to use any sources that you have selected over here on the left to generate an overview based on their default prompts. You can also override their default prompts, and you can click this pencil. And they've given you a lot of options since it first came out, but there's different formats you can do. So they have different prompt templates to create these different things. You can determine length. If you want a short file versus a longer file, you can even do language. So if I wanted to do a brief, brief is probably short by default. Let's say a critique, you do it short versus default. Debate, you can have the two different voices in the audio debated out. So that's cool too. Or a deep dive. You can also create a video overview now, and just to give you kind of a peek at what that looks like, it's that same text kind of explainer that goes with, but they do generate images for each slide, and they break it up in little chunks. So it's I don't want to play it and create too much audio. That's like a pretty solid timeline. There's different stories in here about a scuba diver that got surrounded by it and tossed around by the current and things like that too. So it did a really good job of pulling that together. I definitely got brownie points from my wife for doing all this for just a date. It's super easy to set up. Like I said, if you just go back to that page, go back to here, you create a new notebook, and it starts with blank. They start with sources, right? So if I want to discover sources, and I want to discover something silly right now, say Bigfoot, it's going to give me sources that I can pull in and start using to generate, which is super cool. So if you're a content creator, if you're communicating with your teams, whatever, they have all these different styles. So reports, briefing, video overviews. They even have mind maps now or flashcards. So all sorts of different content you can really just like generate from those sources that you find, which is pretty cool. You don't have to over prompt it. You don't have to do any editing. It comes out pretty much ready to go, which is a common theme across these. Now, another thing that I love, because I hate PowerPoints, I hate presentations, is Gamma. And if you haven't used Gamma, they've been around for maybe a year or two now. And the core value prop here is like, you don't have to design the entire presentation, which I love, obviously. I can't remember if I sign in with Google here or not. It's going to ask me to do that in a different window. Here we go. So let's see if I have something like, here's one of my posts before. And I think this actually pulled my styles from my newsletter website. And it generates the layout plus images based on the content you give it. So if I go back here and I want to create a new one, you have options. So you can generate from a one-line prompt, like I need a presentation about X. You can paste in notes or text, or you can import an existing file and use this to make it prettier. They also have templates you can remix, and they've been expanding, which I think takes away from beauty and simplicity, but I'm sure the users who use this a lot are asking for more features and they're just trying to meet demand. So if you go to paste in text, you basically drop whatever you want in here, and then it's going to ask you to do it from an outline, summarize it, preserve the exact text that you put in there, and then, like I said, they've added formats. So presentation was the biggest pain point for me. You can publish it to a web page if you want. You can put it in a document. You can create social posts. So again, really simple, like what do you want out of it? What do you want me to use? And how do you want me to use it? And this will literally just spit out an entire presentation. I don't know that I have a text outline or anything that I want here, but it's pretty magical to watch this thing run. Let me see if I have old content I can pump in here. You know what I can do? We'll do this, because I do think watching it play out is actually really cool. So from an AI UX standpoint, there's something to be said about speed, right? I think people really like when things work fast and it turns around, but I also think there's a certain level of distrust that happens. So let me see if I can just copy some text from one of my posts. God, why do I write so much? This one took me a long time to write, so to be fair, it was worth it, but let's just see what it picks up. So if I go in here to Gamma, I'm going to just paste in the text. It got all of it. Summarize long text for a document. So it's going to take me to the prompt editor. I think this is messy, but easy to skip over it if you don't want to deal with it. So there's condense, preserve, generate, which is kind of redundant from what was before. Minimalist is what I want. You can choose a visual theme. So you can put a brand theme in here, but you can also choose a visual. You can choose if you want to source from AI and have it generate it, or if you want to source from like a stock photo. You can choose a image style if you want to. Extra keywords. I don't know if these are all the words I would choose, but I'm just going to go with it, right? And then pretty massive context limit down here for your prompt. You have 10 cards as your max on the free plan. Nice CTA to upgrade. It's telling me it works better in Chrome. I'm in Firefox. Doesn't matter. Should work fine. So the cool thing here is, and if you wanted to add extra instructions, you can. You could also give it card by card content if you want to give it more structure. So this is kind of fun to watch though. So you're going to see it literally pull these things together. And what I really love is, like, you saw that image loading when it was generating it. It already had made the call to get the image back. It already put it within the template, and it dropped in the text around it. So it has multiple agents kind of building these things out in real time, and you can just watch it. Like, it's so fast. You can just watch it populate. It's got really important details like no typos, right? Like if they're going to put text on an image, it's specific. So when they're generating the prompts for the images, they're thoughtful about how they do that. They probably have decent evaluations in place for it. They have interesting, diverse structures so it doesn't get boring, and they're analyzing the text you gave it into key points. So you can kind of say, without having to tell it, like, oh, how do I structure it? They're breaking down the text you gave it, and they're structuring it. What makes a good slide, right? They have their own IP to determine some of these things. And they're building this thing out. So I'm going to give them a smiley face because I think they did a good job. So kudos to that team. So there's a little bit of bloat, I would say, in here, but also for the users that they're going for at the business level who are doing this a lot, I think it's okay. Like, it's not hard to cut through it. There's nothing blocking or confusing about it. I thought I had a different theme in my account. Maybe it's in a different account. And then importing from another PowerPoint, a Google slide. So if you have an existing one, you can actually import style, or you can build a theme out. I'm not going to do all that right now. But the whole point is you paste in text, you click a couple buttons, and you get an entire presentation. And I've done this several times. Like, I've read through it and tweaked a few things, but I would say 5 minutes editing at most, which is way better than building out a deck. And I also kind of believe that within 10 slides, you should be able to tell the story that's in the deck. Otherwise, you need to rethink what you're communicating. So the third one that I want to cover is one of my favorites, and it's similar in terms of functionality, but this is what I call like the magic button effect. So this is called Napkin.AI. So they take you here once you sign up directly into this notebook. The idea of the napkin is like you write ideas on a napkin, you sketch napkin things out, or things out on a napkin or whatever. So the beauty here is like you put in something you're trying, you need to visualize and you're not sure how to visualize it. Maybe you've tried prompting to get an image, you can't get it, you're not coming up with the idea you want to visualize it, whatever the case is. So the UX here, they're essentially using like infinite canvas, kind of like Figma, right? They're designing it to look like a notebook, which is cool. They have their spacing, their lines and everything. They're detecting the text that you put in. So you can highlight part of it. You can select the entire thing by paragraph. You can do multiple paragraphs. You can do groups. You just push the button. You see the grid pop up. You see this animation, so it created a space for it. It's going to give you the thing it thinks is best by default, and it's going to give you other options. So it's showing me funnels for progressive disclosure, which makes sense, essential information, simple actions. So it's taking the text I just gave it and it's breaking it out in different ways. And it's putting in like familiar patterns that people will recognize and understand, but it's also figuring out what's actually relevant to what you gave it. And then if you have something else in mind, you can go look for it. I think that's fine too. They have different categories now. I don't know that they all translate well, right? So like they're giving you the best by default, which is like have a good opinionated recommendation, and that's fantastic. You can tweak these. I guess you can filter these, which I never really do. I just kind of play through here and see what I find. Like this might be cool if you're trying to explain how it goes through a person, but it also looks like they're kind of going to the digestive system. And then you can actually pick the colors and styles that you want to apply to it, or they do have a brand studio where you can set up your own styles in here, or you can pick from the options that are there. I don't remember how it got my brand. It's pretty straightforward. The cool thing about this too, you can download it from here. You can copy it. So if I go to export, it's going to let me pick any of these files that I wanted in. It's going to let me just download it however I want. And then I can also just copy it to my clipboard. It's going to give me transparent right away, so I can just paste it into a doc or a post or whatever I'm working in. And if I really want to, I can click through and edit specific elements. So if I don't like this icon, like 90% of this is fine, but I want to change the icon, it's even got this thing that's going to recommend other icons that make sense within that context. So I think this is pretty fantastic because it's a very common need of like, I need to visualize this idea or this text. I need something to accompany it so people remember it, but I'm not sure how to design the information, especially when it's not data either. People tend to do better of like, oh, there's some standards of how you visualize this kind of data to tell a story. When you just have chunks of text or concepts and there's not already a great visual in existence, it's kind of hard to come up with something on the fly. And honestly, AI, like a GPT or Gemini, like Nano Banana or something, are not great at unique visuals. You have to be pretty prescriptive to get what you want, and it takes a lot of back and forth and editing. But this has been a lifesaver for me for something quick. It's great for like social content. It's great for blog post content. And I can't emphasize like how great and simple this experience is of just, I have text, I have notes, I have whatever in this notebook. I can literally just choose part of the text that I want and push this button, and I get options. I get like fantastic designs, important like summaries or like details in there for what I gave it. And I can choose exactly which one I want. I can customize it, and I can share it right away, or I can use it right away. There's other design tools, like if people really want to mess with it, but I honestly think the beauty is in not having to mess with it. Otherwise, you go to something like Canva and you're in good shape. You can edit templates, you can go in there and mess with it. But I really do think, like, I need something visual. I'm not overly sensitive about the branding on it, or I even just need to like give a concept of something to someone. This is really hard to beat. And I think the reason these three stand out to me is that the UI is minimal. The amount of thinking and decision making by the user in all these is minimal. And so if you go back and think like through all these tools that we use for a long time, right? Design tools like Photoshop or Figma or even Canva at this point, or you go through and think about like presentation tools like Google Slides or PowerPoint, or even just like, I mean, there was nothing to create like a podcast from something else or a video from something else before, but just tools that distill information or kind of compile information from different sources. Like, it's a lot of manual work. It's never been something where you can make some assumptions or take an opinionated stance and just make it easy. But it's all of these do a really good job of like, let's just take what the user has, like meet the user where they're at, which is a good rule of thumb, and create something useful for them with minimal effort. And I think that's a much better approach, especially across modalities or for generating content, than some of these apps take in terms of like, you know, you're essentially asking them to fill in the 10 variables in the prompt that you're going to send versus more opinionated stance and just give them, assume what you're going to assume, take what they give you and make the best possible option, which I think turns out to be pretty valuable.